All right, Talk Buffalo podcast. It is Wednesday. This is the fifth and final of a series of Buffalo Bills 7-round mock drafts. And just like the first four, I got my buddy with me, recurring guest, a good friend of mine, Aaron Quinn from Cover One. Who, by the way, what is it now? About a week or so, or maybe a little bit less in counting before you and your boys Greg and Eric are out going to Vegas to cover the draft. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Yeah, man, you got to keep that intro music going a little longer when you bring me in because that thing's bopping, man.
You do. You get into it, man.
I like it. It's got a 90s like R&B feel for me. I dig it.
So. I usually, the first couple of years I had this show, I would be changing it like every couple of weeks. I'd get sick of something and change it up. But I've had that one going for a while. Plus, it's legal, so I don't have to worry about getting sued for
perfect
for using it, man. When are you boys going out to Vegas exactly?
Yeah, so we're going out strictly just for the draft. So we're getting in Thursday morning Vegas time, afternoon, right around before lunch. We're all getting in and then really gathering our stuff, getting in our hotel, and then scoping it out because the draft starts that night. And then we're there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday we're heading back. So it's a full quick weekend in and out. Everyone keeps talking to me. My brother was thinking about going since I was going to be out there anyway, and friends are like, oh man, are you going to do all this fun stuff in Vegas? And it's looking like it's going to be work for us really full time once we get there. We were talking to Joe Marino last week. We had him on and we were talking. He's like, yeah, you guys got to go. I
watched that show.
Yeah. And he was saying, you really got to go ahead of time to really enjoy the full experience. Cause if you get there, whatever, on Sunday, the week before, then you get a few days settled in, make some content, but get to enjoy Vegas and being out there where we're going to be there just for the draft. It's going to be pretty much straight out work and then back on a flight back to Buffalo.
Well, there's worse places that you could be to go do some work,
especially with this weather, man. What the hell? This is terrible.
I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you that I was going to go out and celebrate Dingus Day, which I've never done. I know
I've never done it either.
It's a very popular thing. Obviously, if you live in Buffalo anyway, Dingus Day is very popular, which is weird because down in Florida, most people have never even heard of Dingus
I never heard of it until I moved to Buffalo.
Yeah, see, that's not uncommon either. It's huge in Buffalo, but kind of non-existent.
I think it's big in Chicago, like other big Polish cities,
a few places,
like in Milwaukee, stuff like that.
Right, but I was, at least over the weekend, I was kind of flirting with the idea of doing something, and at least meeting a couple people out and having a beer or two and just kind of experiencing it for a couple hours. But no, man, this weather is just a huge turnoff lately.
Today was even worse.
I know I'm that guy, and I've been complaining since basically December. So I know.
Honestly, actually, you started complaining like Halloween. I remember being on this.
Yeah. I'm not going to run away from that either. I did. Yeah. But am I right now? I mean, when it gets to be the goddamn third week of April and it's still in the mid 30s with wet snow. And what was it, Easter or the day after? It was Easter morning. You woke up and there was snow on the grass. I mean, it melted away that same day, but
still, it's too much. Too much cold. Winter shouldn't still be existing. I walk my kids to school every day, dude, and we're still putting on hats, gloves, full coats. Like that stuff needs to end. I need to put the coats away.
I've resorted myself to staying in, mainly staying in and watching. By the way, I think I told you I'm doing the MCU binge right now. All 27 movies chronologically.
I saw you went through the Guardians. You got to Guardians.
I am through. Yep, both of them. I'm at 15. 15 to 27. So I'm more than halfway through already. And I got one or two favorites that you've watched MCU movies, obviously. I think we talked about that. There's none that I've hate. Well, the Incredible Hulk and Ant-Man I thought were pretty stupid.
Really?
Yeah. And I love Thor's my favorite character, but I didn't like the Dark World. So those are the three that I really did not like so far. And again, I'm watching these chronologically, so they're not necessarily in order that they were released. But so far for me, there's three that really have stood out. Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, that was like that's my third favorite one. I really liked it a lot. But between 1 and 2, it's like neck and neck. And I actually watched one of them last night. I was kind of almost stressed because I couldn't. Every 5 minutes, I'm changing my mind. Like, because you know me, I power rank literally freaking everything. The Avengers, The Age of Ultron, and Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Those are the two so far that are neck and neck for me. I really like them both a lot, man. I can't believe in a way, I'm glad I missed out on it before because now I am getting to experience it. Now, again, I've watched some of these before.
There's some argument, right, of watching it in the chronological or in the order of release. I remember when it came, somebody tagged me in one of these threads and I said, do what you want. but there's a lot of like, no, you have to watch it in order of release to understand, to get all the Easter eggs and understand
Yeah.
Marvel's doing and stuff like that. So there's quite an argument as to how to watch it. I watched it in the same way you did.
Yeah, I'm doing it chronologically. I get it to an extent. Like Captain Marvel was the second movie I watched, and that wasn't released
Right.
in 2019. And next up on the list, which who knows by the time this drops on Wednesday, I might have watched it by now. Black Widow, which that didn't come out to 2021.
That's not. It's okay. It's all
Yeah,
right.
well, I don't know. I haven't seen
Similar
the
to like the
second of it.
Ant-Mans and stuff like that. Like it's
The
all right.
the fun
They're all entertaining, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, man, there hasn't been one movie yet where I'm like, God damn, that was a waste of 2 hours of my life.
Right.
None of them have been that bad. They've all brought
Right.
something to the table. But now that I'm paying attention, because again, I watched some of these loosely,
Sure.
half paid attention. I didn't look for any, I didn't dig deep. I just, all right, this shit's over my head. And I just cared about the action scenes. Now I'm paying attention to every little detail, and it's so much more fun to watch. And again, the upside of not watching them all these years is that now I'm enjoying them, or somebody who got to for the first time. So that part's been pretty cool. But anyway, we'll see. By the time you guys get back from Vegas, and next time we talk, which will probably be a couple weeks from now or whatever, I'll definitely be done with this, and then maybe we'll have a little more MCU detailed discussion. Let's talk about. Go ahead.
Since you saw Guardians though, and I know you're a WWE fan, I think Drax, best character in MCU.
I really liked him by the second one. So I watched both of them
humor
together.
That he brings to that is like the timing and like the just hitting the same jokes. It's incredible. The dryness.
I didn't care about him so much early on, like early in the first one, but by the second one, I was all about Drax. In fact, I wrote that in my I write these little capsules for
dissertations.
Yeah, I liked him a lot. I really he grew on me quickly. And
Such a good character.
I knew he was going to. I mean, I'm a Batista fan from WWE. All right, so again, this is going to be the last mock draft that Aaron and I do. I might, maybe on draft day next week, I might sneak in a little quick solo, take a stab myself mock draft pod. But anyway, this is the last one that Aaron and I are certainly doing. This has been a fun exercise. I feel like there's been some constants with us, some names that
might be tonight too.
Could be, and some names we haven't taken. Let's kind of, as I look through our first picks, and I go through our first picks. So we've done 4 of these. We took Chris Olave twice, Devin Lloyd, and Jordan Davis. I'm going to be honest with you. We got a picture of Chris Olave up there, but I'm going to be honest with you, Aaron. I don't think any of these guys, I would be surprised.
Yeah.
And we're a week away from the draft now. So again, Olave, Lloyd, and Davis, I don't think any of these people are going to be there at 25. Yeah. I truly don't. What do you think?
So this is tough for me. I was just having this conversation today with my brother, who's a Bears fan. He covers the Bears. And so they're not until round 2. And so we were talking about this sort of end of the first round discussion. And almost every single time I've done a mock draft, though, Pat, I get that same response. No way that guy's at 25. And my thing is, like, I don't disagree with you. I don't think Chris Olave will be at 25. I don't think Devin Lloyd will be at 25. I don't think Davis will be at 25. I like most of these guys. I don't see it. I think they're all top 25 players, but one of them's going to be right. Like we're going to have teams that take a QB earlier than should be. You're going to have a run on some position at some point.
Guys, we think our reaches.
All these guys that we're saying, there's no way they're going to make it to 25. Like somebody's going to out of that group of names that we've been mocking here for the last 3 months. So somebody's going to be there. We don't know who it's going to be. But this is the draft. Like something always happens that we don't expect. So I agree with you. The odds are probably not in the favor of the simulations that we've done of who's going to be around. But I'll tell you right now, when we're going to run another one tonight, some of those names might not be there, but there's going to be other names sitting there that tonight we're going to be like, oh, there's no way this guy's going to be here, but somebody's going to end up sitting at 25 that you didn't expect.
I agree 100%. I would say too, I feel like even if Jordan Davis was there, I'm not sure the Bills would take a defensive tackle with the first pick. Unless they really, really like that value as the player. It's just, there's no need for that. But well, you can always improve in position. So I shouldn't say there's no need for it, but I don't see, I still remain steadfast in that Devin Lloyd is the player to me that really stands out as the most interesting. I don't think he's going to be there, but it'll just be really telling if he is what happens with Tremaine Edmonds. The writing might be on the wall at that point. But anyway, so we've kind of mixed that up a little bit. One constant we've had in all four of our mocks, the one guy that's we've taken every single time is Cam Taylor-Britt, the corner from Nebraska.
Yeah.
We've snagged him in round 3 of all of our mocks. Now, you mentioned having Joe Marino was on the podcast with you and Greg last week for Cover One. I watched that show, but it was fun.
Thank
it was
you.
good.
Thanks.
It doesn't sound to me like any of you guys, and especially Joe, is convinced that Cam Taylor-Britt is going to be there in the 3rd round. Now that we're roughly a week away, a week and a day or whatever from this draft, what do you think the chances are that the Bills could stand pat at round 3 without moving up into round 3 and going to get this guy?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell on myself a little bit here because early on, I've been on Cam Taylor-Britt since the start. Russ Brown, who's our top draft guy, he has the Cover One Draft podcast. It was part of one of his first releases of talking about the cornerback position this year. And he mentioned Cam Taylor-Britt. And so that's the guy I jumped into first and really fell for this guy. And even at that time when people were saying like, oh, you can just get him in the 3rd. And I kept like, correct him and just saying like, you mean 2nd, right? But then the narrative, because I think this was something I asked Joe this weekend, like that power of the draft network and where they have guys slotted. And it creates this narrative on Twitter of where people believe guys should be in the draft when in reality, they're going to have bad grades on some of these guys. Like Joe will be the first one to admit it, that they're going to miss on a large percentage of where they have guys stacked. They're going to be more right than schmucks like me are on these guys, but they're going to miss too. So and I think they're seeing that now. I want to even say maybe the Cover One Buffalo gave Cam Taylor-Britt a little bit of a bump this week, because now if you're running mock simulators tonight, I don't think he's going to be there in that 3rd round. But I've been saying the whole time, I thought he was a 2nd round pick. But you saw this sort of Twitter narrative hanging on because he was always there for everybody's mocks for the Bills in the 3rd round. But I think this week you're seeing him kind of creeping up their board even. I think the NFL is going to be higher on him. I think he's worthy of a 2nd round pick. And you're going to see 2 runs. I think you're going to see a run either late in that 1st, early in the 2nd, on that first batch of quarterbacks, your Woolen, your McDuffie's, all these guys that are kind of hanging out in that late 1st, and then you're going to see that other run late in the 2nd, which is I think where Cam Taylor-Britt will be.
So we're not going to do trades, but I will track if you're right, and I kind of hope you are, because that'll kind of complete this exercise. We've taken Cam Taylor-Britt in the 3rd round. Kind of hope he's not there, because maybe this will give us a little bit of an idea. And if
maybe we reach in the 2nd if we really like that player.
Crazier things have happened. But even if not, we'll have to know or this will kind of tell us in the 3rd round where we might have to move up if we want to try to make sure that we get this guy. I agree. I think there's going to be guys that many experts out there they might consider them reaches that I think are in play for the Bills at 25, especially if they stay true to what their biggest need is. And maybe it's at least possible.
Rousseau seemed like a reach when it happened, right?
Sure.
By most accounts. So the Bills board is not, we've already know that it's proven not to be accurate with everyone else's.
Maybe we've overanalyzed things, not just you and I, but everybody who does this over the last month or two. We're sitting there talking about Tremaine Edmonds. Is he going to be here or not? Because you got a Devin Lloyd. What's going on with Jordan Poyer? Are they going to take a safety in the first 2 or 3 rounds? What does that tell you? This and that. Singletary being replaced by a running back, maybe in the late 1st round. It's things like that where maybe, just maybe, we have been overthinking this the whole time. Corners a glaring need. They got a guy with a bad ACL and Dane Jackson, who's not really that proven. It makes sense from a need standpoint to go get a corner. A guy that maybe some people are going to think is a reach. McCreary or an Elam or Tariq, even a Tariq Woolen or a Kyler Gordon late in the 1st round. I'm not even talking about 2nd round. I'm talking about late in the 1st.
Right.
That could happen. Let me ask you this before we get rolling with this final draft. Give me a guy, and this might be because again, you do shows with me, and then you have your own show with Greg, and you guys talk about different things. So you might get your signals mixed a little bit. But through the first 4 that we've done, a guy that you really haven't either been too high on or that you really haven't even thought much about, who is 1 or 2 potential sleeper guys that maybe we haven't pulled the trigger on yet that have kind of consistently been available that maybe people, including ourselves, have been sleeping on as a potential pick at 25. I have one. I want to know if you have one off the bat.
I think mine would be Jahan Dotson, maybe. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's a
Receiver.
guy that I'm lower on with Traylon Burks. I think like early in this draft process, I was just hearing from everyone about Traylon Burks. You heard a Debo comp come out towards the end of the season, end of the Bills season on Traylon Burks, and you heard that Debo comp, and everyone ran with it like this could be our Debo, and everyone's looking for that in the NFL. And I don't know that I understand where that comp comes from, but I don't know that he's that guy. But he was really high up, and I never got on that. And then John Dotson was another guy that I saw really smart people that I like talk kind about him, but he seemed more like Burks, like a mid to late second round guy. I didn't really see him as a guy at 25, but I've seen some really smart people like this player. And I've seen some nice highlights and the facts that they're representing about this player and some of the highlights that they're showing look nice. So maybe I'm way off on him. He might be a guy that I'm off on, that he belongs in that same conversation with Olave, where he's been available to us.
I still think that short of them taking a corner in the first round, I don't think they're going to be drafting a guy at 25. Short of a corner, I think who's going to come in and be a week one starter. So I want to put that out there, regardless of the position. The guy that I've had in mind, at least in our mock drafts, that has consistently been there at pick 25, and this is another guy that you're not personally all too high on, is the guard, Kenyon Green.
Yeah.
I think from
I've come around on him a lot. That's another one I've come around on quite a bit.
I look at this team. I've read up on him. He's an athletic guy, and he's the guy that you can get in the late first round. You have him for 5 years now. Again, not a premium position. I know that, but
More premium than that's a position that should be considered more premium than it is.
Yeah, true. Well, you got Bates, and then you bring in Saffold, but who's 33 years old and very likely only here for 1 year.
Yeah.
You got a guy like Spencer Brown last year, or Rizzo I thought was going to be, where you kind of groom him for a year and then they kind of take over that spot. Now that
There's
was
a chance.
accelerated.
I don't think Zion Johnson will be there, but I saw him in a mock here this week that I did. And Kenyon Green here, I think there's a chance. I've tweeted out mocks where I got Green or I got Zion Johnson. People's first comment were, I don't want to guard because that's not going to be a position that starts in 2022. And I was like, really? Are you sure that it's not, though? Because I don't know that Green couldn't beat out Ryan Bates. I don't know that.
Could happen.
And so I think we're saying we saw that sample size that he displayed and are excited about Bates. And I think that he's back. That's exciting. But there's no guarantee that he's beating a first round rookie. Maybe he will, but I don't know that it's a lock. I think people are maybe overestimating who Ryan Bates is a little bit.
Could be. I think guard is definitely in play. I think it's in play as early potentially, depending on how things fall. Now, if a Chris Olave is there in the first round and you go taking a guard, then I might, there might be some criticism coming Brandon Beane's way on Friday morning if that were to happen. But depending on how the board sees it, I'm looking forward to seeing how it falls in just a couple minutes here. I definitely think a guard could be played early as the first round. And then I got one more thing too. And the one thing about, and by the way, we've credited the Draft Network this entire time. For everyone listening or watching on YouTube right now, we use the Draft Network model every week. And for the most part, it's been awesome. I mean, it's not without flaws. Everything has a flaw.
For sure.
But I'll say this much. It's been really good. But the one thing I have not liked about the projections, because I just can't believe it. I mean, we just spent some time talking about the first round, some picks being unrealistic. Rather consistently, Breece Hall has been available in the second round when the Bills are on the clock. That's not going to happen. I'm confident that's not going to happen. Never say never. I don't see it. Almost everyone I'm reading at this point says he's going to be the first running back off the board. He might be the only running back taken in the first round. But even if not, I think he'll go early second round. I just don't see it happening. And I bring that up because I go back to what Brandon Beane did this offseason when I'm trying to think about what might happen in this draft. And I know they went out and they signed Duke Johnson.
Yeah.
But they wanted J.D. McKissick for a very specific reason.
Right.
And they were ready to give him $4.5 million a year. It was like a 2-year, $9 million deal that they ended up, that Washington matched. I believe it was $9 million over 2 years. I think it was not chump change. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't a small contract.
Yeah,
they wanted him, and for a reason. And I continue to think, and a guy that we haven't really spent too much time talking about, although we have a little bit of late, and this could be even early as the second round, is the running back from James Cook. from Georgia, who I've read up on. I've listened to Joe Marino talk about him too. And this guy is a hell of a receiver coming out of the backfield. He's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a J.D. McKissic type. I could see even as early in the second round, because again, I don't think Hall's going to be there in round 2. So I want to put that out there. But I could see, or if you want to talk about a potential reach, I could see a guy like Cook going to the Bills as early as the second round. Now, another guy who's good out of the
I like
backfield,
Rashad White in
I
that
was just
spot.
going to mention him. He's the other guy, maybe not in round 2, but definitely round 3, if not round 2. But I think running back is going to get addressed in a specific way, a kind of role that they wanted J.D. McKissic to come in. And the two guys I had in mind was Cook and your guy, Rashad White.
Yeah, and I would not rule out Hall at 25. That'll make
Right?
Twitter
Sure.
upset, but I'm not going to rule that. If Brandon Beane has said if that is BPA, he's willing to take a running back in the first round, and he's shown it in his history and that he would do it again. So if the board, I don't know many ways that I have seen the board fall where he is best player available there, but there's probably paths to it. So prepare yourselves, Bill's Twitter, because that's going to be a mess if they go running back round 1. Twitter's going to be a mess for a while.
I'm not going to call this a hot take. I'm going to call this a guess, and I'm not going to try to pretend like I have any inside information. I have zero. This is just a hunch. I think the Bills are going to have a bigger priority at running back than they do wide receiver in this draft. And I know a lot of people, because there's so many end of the first round type of wide receivers who potentially could go to Buffalo.
Sure.
Now, I think Olave is the difference. He's the difference maker. I think they would pull the trigger on him, but the other guys, I don't know, man. I think they're going to go running back before.
You're also going to have there's that tough slate where some of the teams ahead of Buffalo are teams that also need wide receiver help. Green Bay, like if Olave is there, you think Aaron Rodgers is going to allow Green Bay to
New England?
on him. New England's right there. Exactly. There's a number of teams that definitely need wide receiver help and have not been able to address it ahead of the Bills. That makes it tough for me to see the better top wide receivers that I'd like to see them get being available there.
Let's take one quick look at last week's draft.
Yeah.
And then we're going to jump into our final one here. So last week it went, Devin Lloyd fell to us. We had a long discussion about that.
Yeah.
The talent was too much and we couldn't resist. Probably not the greatest move.
Yeah.
Again, Breece Hall in the second round, that's been available to us every time. We took it. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't, Aaron.
Right.
Third round, Cam Taylor-Britt, corner from Nebraska. By the way, if this draft was real, I would love it. Velus Jones Jr. in round 4, wide receiver from Tennessee. Then we went Isaac Taylor-Stewart, a corner from USC. So we did double dip on corner, just not too early. We went rounds 3 and 5. We got our interior offensive lineman in the 6th round, Chris Paul from Tulsa. Wanye Thomas, he's a guy that we've taken 3 of our 4 drafts here. He's a safety that Aaron likes. He's from Georgia Tech.
It's a Sarah Neal thing, man. He's got like a Sarah Neal thing, and he he could be what I thought Sarah Neal could be, but we'll see.
Yeah, and then in the last round, a Notre Dame guy, Moran, I can never pronounce this guy's name, Tagovailoa Amosa. He's an edge guy from Notre Dame. Before we get into our final draft, because I'm sure I'm going to ask at the end what you think of our final draft, but as we get into this one, how would you feel if this is how things had played out for real?
Yeah,
now,
I mean,
you've had a week to process this now.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, well, one, I won't lie that I've not given it a ton of thought since we did the show, so I haven't processed it. I just you pulled it up and I just remembered.
I'm like, oh shit, that's who we took.
Yeah. But in processing it later, the only thing that's tough is that first pick. Like, I like it. I like the idea that if you are moving on from Tremaine, that's the guy you're moving on with, and that the idea that you would get something for Edmonds this year, maybe in a trade. But there's so many other ripples from a move like that makes it hard to totally process a move like that where your team's at currently. So other than that, the rest of that draft is on par with most of the drafts that I've done in terms of I'd be really happy to walk away with that haul and know that a few of those guys will probably be contributors this year.
One last quick point, and it's regarding Devin Lloyd. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to jump into our final mock draft here. If they were to take Devin Lloyd, I don't think it automatically means that Tremaine Edmonds is gone that week. Like he's gone that night. It could at least be possible that as a rookie, Lloyd takes on a more expanded role of what AJ Klein was, who could bring more to the table.
You're losing Edmonds for nothing.
Yeah, well,
because you're not going to keep him.
Yes and no. You're not going to keep him. That's a given, and you're not going to trade if you don't trade him.
Comp pick formula.
You get, yeah, he's going to get paid. So you can look at it as, well, we're going to get a third rounder in 2024, and we drafted his replacement, who's now a year in the NFL and
But
ready to
that's
take
only
over.
assuming the comp pick thing I love, only assuming you're not going to outspend what you lose.
We say it every year, and then every year the Bills
and
go
then
on and
every
sign
year
these guys.
Bean spends
But
more.
listen, if there's ever going to be a year where they're going to lose more than they gain, it's going to be next year.
We'll see.
Because
Greg was just
they got to
talking about
worry.
all those
They got
coupons.
to. I know, but they got to get Oliver and Knox, and they got to worry about Poyer, and they got to. Well, not Singletary. So there's a lot to worry about. So, and Edmonds potentially. So if there's ever a year where they might lose a couple key guys and not go signing Von Millers and a bunch of players,
they
like
better
that.
win a championship right now.
All right, quick break, folks. We're going to be right back, and we're going to jump right into this draft. All right, I'm back with Aaron Quinn from Cover One, and let's get this rolling, man. Same thing as always. So
no
again,
trades.
you've been following along. Draft Network. We're doing 7 rounds, no trades, and we'll just hit the start button here. And by the way, I say this every time too. If you typically listen and once in a while you watch us on YouTube, I prefer, generally speaking, people listen to the podcast. But for these mock drafts, I think it's really better if you're watching. So if you can, jump on YouTube. By the way, if you do hit that subscribe button. But anyway, you can visually see on the YouTube version of this podcast the picks as they're going off the board on other teams in real time before Aaron and I discuss this. Which, by the way, this is going to be interesting now because I want to see who's going to be available. All right, so before I even look at who's available, let me scroll right back up to the start here. I really don't care. By the way, Kyle Hamilton going second to Detroit, that would be really high. I didn't talk about him in the opening before this draft, but if he happens to drop to like 10, 11, 12, man, I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills try to make some kind of play. But anyway, all right. So we got a quarterback going 8th. Malik Willis goes to Atlanta. The first corner doesn't go off the board till 11. That's going to be tough to believe.
Yeah, anyway, I think Gardner's going to be in the top 5.
Yeah, I do too. But anyway, he's gone. He's at 11. Jordan Davis, who we got in our first mock draft, he's gone at 12. Stingley, the corner, goes 13 to Houston. Garrett Wilson, we've spent no time talking about Garrett Wilson because I think
he's
there's
so
no
good.
chance. He's not in reach for the Bills at 25.
I actually think 15's a little late, but we'll see.
So do I. So he goes to Philly at 15. Drake London goes 16. Next pick to the Saints. We haven't talked about offensive tackles because that's not going to happen. Andrew Booth Jr., a guy who I've seen falling in some mocks lately.
Man,
not here.
Nice.
He goes 18 to Philly. Pickett goes 19, the quarterback. You talked about Zion Johnson a little bit. He went to Pittsburgh at 20. Jameson Williams falls at 21 to New England. I would not like that much at all. Chris Olave. All right, so we're not going to be presented with that option.
Right.
He's
but like I said, for every option that, hey, that guy, there's no way that guy's going to be there. Well, we're sitting at another guy that's not supposed to be there.
Yep. So, all right. So Olave goes 23. All right. So here's the best players. Now, Devin Lloyd is there. But what I will say right off the bat, we're not taking him today because we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
Taking him is knowing what you're doing with Tremaine Edmonds.
Sure.
And we don't know what they're going to do with Tremaine
I'm fine
Edmonds.
with that. Yeah.
So we won't take Devin Lloyd today. I love him, though. And I'd be happy if they did. But we're not doing it. The best players available on the board right now are Daxon Hill. He's listed as a safety, a defensive back from Michigan. Kenyon Green, the guard who we talked a lot about earlier. Jahan Dotson, a wide receiver that you talked about. Kier Elam, if you're really headstrong on going corner in the first round, he's there. Traylon Burks. In the unlikely event you are moving on from Jordan Poyer and you know it, and you want safety, Lewis Hines there. We're not going to mess around with linebackers because we're just not going to do it that early.
Yeah.
Sky Moore, Bryce Hall's 41 first ranked player on the board.
Tyler Smith is a guy that Joe Marino loves.
Who?
Tulsa, Tyler Smith. Right. He was right where you were.
Bryce Hall, okay.
Tyler Smith, yeah.
Yeah, interior offensive lineman from Tulsa, another guy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right, so this is an interesting scenario here because two guys that we talked about as guys that maybe we've slept on through the first month are two guys who are very much in play, especially if we're not going Devin Lloyd here.
Yeah.
Hold on. I didn't realize this. I don't see. This is where I don't buy it, man. I just don't buy it. Trent McDuffie's on the board.
Right.
That's It's tough to believe.
But this is what I'm saying, man. The more everyone's like, this guy's not going to be on the board. I sound like a broken record tonight, but the more I think about it, it's like one of those guys will be, right? Like, let's go back through that first pick. Like, what are the surprising ones?
I would say
Winfrey,
that's
Perrin
not,
Winfrey's
but
going
is
a
it really
little.
that? It's not that shocking, though. You're right. And to your point, you're right. Winfrey's surprising, but I wouldn't say it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? That's crazy.
Like, I think Pickett's crazy in the first round, but teams get stupid about quarterbacks. Like, there's no.
I mean, also there two quarterbacks went in the first 24 picks. I don't think that's batshit crazy. You know what I mean?
No, and the rest of this is going to look, yeah.
And this is, I mean, maybe not the necessary, again.
Then one of those guys has fallen, right? Like, maybe it's not one of the premier, but still, so even if you take 2 players off, we found 2 that seemed like reaches. So say you take 2 off and you just put Trent McDuffie and Devin Lloyd, you still have Kenyon Green sitting there at 25 that I don't know that he should be either. So
true.
I think even for the sake of this exercise, I think we can say McDuffie and Lloyd are probably guys that we shouldn't touch for the sake of the exercise. We weren't going to touch Lloyd. We're going to assume McDuffie's there. And honestly, I'm going to pull out a Bruce Nolan sort of the outliers thing. Bruce likes to talk about outliers and how like not to give investment or bank on an outlier. If Trent McDuffie becomes a successful outside NFL cornerback, he's going to be an outlier in terms of the arm length. There's not a lot of guys that have his arm length that have gone on to have successful long-term NFL careers as outside corners. And so Bruce would say that's probably a bad economics decision to, even though we like that player, it's a player I like watching. I think he has a lot to offer. I think he's probably more in line with a Taron Johnson role where he's a starting nickel that allows your defense to play nickel all the time type of guy. I think he can play outside. He did it in college, but if he's going to do it at the NFL, he's going to be an outlier. He's not going to be the norm. And that's a tough thing for me to take with a first round pick. I could be talked into it, but in this scenario, I think I'm going with Kenyon Green for the first pick here. People are super high on Daxton Hill. That's a weird one to me too, Pat. That maybe this is a guy that I'm sleeping on too, because I'm a Michigan fan. I like Daxton Hill. I don't love the idea of drafting him as a first rounder to play outside corner. He played some nickel corner. That's a huge difference.
I've read that he didn't even have a lot of snaps at outside corner.
35
snaps. He's a nickel corner or a safety, which, you know, you got Taron Johnson. And again, are you looking to move on from Jordan Poyer? If the answer is definitively yes, then maybe Hill could be in play for sure. But again, we'd be projecting, just like we were saying, they're definitely moving on for Tremaine Hill.
Yeah.
Or Tremaine Evans, I'm sorry, by taking Devin Lloyd. So
yeah, it's
Green or Dotson at this point. I don't know. And I don't think you could go wrong with either pick. And you're the GM here, so you're going to get to pull this trigger.
And so I will say I feel like I've been sleeping on Dotson. There's a good chance of it. But I'm having a tough time passing up on Kenyon Green here because, again, I don't think he should be here, but there's a few names maybe that we're staring at. So he's ended up here to us. So whatever. Protecting Josh Allen is my number one priority as a GM. And we have not done a good job at the interior. I'm not sold that Bates is guaranteed to be the starter. And if he is, fantastic. And if he's not, then this guy, Kenyon Green may be able to be that role. Long-term, I'm going to have a need with Roger Saffold. So maybe it's hey, this guy's a swing player. He's played some tackle. He's played interior. He can be a swing player, multi-positional type guy for 1 year and learn. And I'm okay with that too, with the number one pick. If I know that I can have a 5, 6, 7, 8 year starter in the waiting at the guard position, I'll give up my first round pick for that this year. So I'm happy taking interior offensive line. I've been getting crap every time I do it with the 25th pick, but I'm telling you, man, if you get a guy that's a projected NFL starter interior offensive lineman, like, it's not the sexiest position, it's not the highest paid position, but it's a super important position. The most devastating pressure to a quarterback comes from the interior. If you're going to get that run game going with running backs, that if you're not taking high-end running backs that Bills Mafia doesn't want to take, you're stuck with Devin Singletary's and Duke Johnsons of the world, you better make big holes and get that run game going.
I like it a lot. And I feel like, for all the uncertainty that we might be facing next season with some of these guys resigning, to be able to take a guy, even if he doesn't start this year, but now you got Dawkins, you got Brown, you got Bates, you got your rookie Green.
Morris is a lot younger than people think.
Exactly. Morrison isn't one and done with this team, I don't think.
No.
to have an offensive line that can stay together for quite a while, I think is a good thing. Before we get to the second round, before we even really start to examine this board,
Yep.
let me ask you this. So we didn't go with Lloyd, we didn't go with Dotson. We looked at the 24 that were there. As a Bills fan, and again, we haven't talked about maybe moving up. What would be your best case scenario for who you would want on the board that is at least semi-realistic? Because Trent McDuffie was there, but we didn't pull the trigger on him. Your best case scenario for you personally, with the Bills on the clock at 25, things go the way you want it to. Somebody who at least has a puncher's chance of being on the board at 25 that would make you the most happiest to run that card up.
A puncher's chance would be, and maybe I'm just telling myself this, Andrew Booth. If Andrew Booth somehow makes it through those late teens into the 20s, that's a guy I'm even considering moving up. If he's hanging out 21, 22, like maybe I'm moving just to make sure I get that guy. And gosh, if he was to just fall to 25 into your lap, that'd be pretty fantastic because it addresses need and he would be probably best player available at that point. So you would get best of both worlds if Andrew Booth happens to fall there.
I did some draft value chart math, and I kind of wondered what it would take to hot New England at 21 to go to 20 to go get somebody that you really liked. And a guy like Booth, for an example, it would cost you your first and your third. Maybe like a swap of fifths or sixth or something like that. I'd go give up a third to go get a guy, especially if you like him a lot. He's going to be your day one starter, your corner for 5 years, premium position, rookie contract. Certainly worth the third rounder.
Absolutely.
All right. So anyway, we're in the round 2 now. The Bills are on the clock, but let's review.
Yep.
A couple guys that we've talked about.
Quay Walker.
Yeah, Quay Walker, a guy who I do like, by the way, a lot. A linebacker, went to Detroit at the beginning of the second round. Traylon Burks gone early. Kier Elam, the corner's gone.
Safety there out of Georgia. Safeties, Baylor.
Couple safeties, Sky Moore. Kyler Gordon.
Kyler Gordon's a guy that, again, we're hearing maybe he's a first round guy. And maybe that's the dude that the Bills, if Booth's gone and maybe they just say, hey, we're going to get out of here with a corner, it's going to be Gordon.
Yeah, could have been. Again, I wouldn't be stunned.
I'd be fine with that. I wouldn't be mad.
If he would have picked 25, it wouldn't completely stun me.
I feel like Russo Wooden, last year.
Yeah. Tariq Wooden went 46 to Minnesota. We're not going to look at guards, obviously, now because we're good with that. Roger McCreary went to Kansas City at 50.
Yeah.
All right, that's about it for
Pickens,
guys.
George Pickens, a guy receiver. Like right off the board to Dallas.
So Breece Hall is there, and again, I don't want to take him because he's not going to be there, Aaron. He's not going to be there. God damn it.
Not my fault. The board falls how it falls, man. No.
Let's do. I know, but we call this an exercise. Yeah. And you want to speak of an exercise? Here's a fun part right now. All right. The top corner available on the board is Cam Taylor-Britt, the guy that we've taken in round 3 every single draft.
Okay.
We now know without question if we want Cam Taylor-Britt, we're taking him right now. Unless you like another corner better than him, or you want to wait on and
there's a chance he drops. Let's see what else is available real quick.
Well, he ain't gonna drop 33 picks.
He might. We'll see.
No way. All right, so those are the corners. Alontae Taylor.
Yeah. I like Emerson.
Martin Emerson from Mississippi State.
Yeah. And he might be there. McCollum is a guy that I don't like now, but like as a projection. Kobe Bryant I really like a lot.
Yeah, too early though, second round, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, all these guys are too early, second round. The only guy I'm even considering for me personally is Cam Taylor. But I know a lot of people like Alontae Taylor, but I'd heard early on that he was more a safety prospect than a corner prospect. So I don't know. Maybe that turned me off from him. All right, so we're assuming
every running back on the Draft Network model is available with the Bills at the end of round 2.
You know what this is? No, this is no offense to the Draft Network. I love Joe. I respect Joe. If you heard our show last week, I think that came through a little bit, our admiration for Joe.
Love Joe.
And we love the Draft Network. It's what we all use. I got to say, though, this is where any of these draft simulators or whatever come to that sort of subjective area is they're all low on running back, in my opinion. And that makes it low across the board. I think they're lower than maybe the NFL is. I think Hall will probably be first round, really early second round.
The only way he's not gone is if he's not one of the top 2 running backs taken, and we're wrong about how big of a prospect he is.
Sure.
That we could be wrong.
There will be running backs gone, though. Yeah.
What I know I'm right on is there ain't going to be 56 picks in this NFL draft before a running back gets taken. That much I'm willing to bet on.
I at least between Hall and Walker are so good, and I know like Joe Marino is his number one is Spiller. I'm not as high on Spiller, but I think Walker and Hall are so good. That'd be crazy for them to not be off the board at this point. But anyways, what else is up there just at the general board?
Okay, now before we get to the general board,
okay.
James Cook, the running back I
Right.
told you that I like a lot, is there, and he'll probably be there in round 3 as well, which he might be in round, and wouldn't be crazy to say he would be there in round 3 in the real draft too. Other guys there at the top besides backs and corners that we talked about, Christian Harris, a linebacker from Alabama.
Yeah. Chad Muma,
that's a guy you have spoken of from Wyoming.
Trey McBride was in on a visit, I believe, on a 30 visit.
Now, Dylan Parham is an interior offensive lineman from Memphis. If I remember correctly, I was going to say on your show last week with Joe Marino as your guest, I believe he took him in the second round.
But he loves him. We're
not taking him because we're
not double dipping there.
We're not double dipping a guard with the first 2 picks, but he would be in consideration for sure.
Correct, yeah.
Any of these other guys?
John Mechie is a guy that the Bills had in for a visit. Another one, Alabama wide receiver. I feel like you can't go wrong taking either Ohio State or Alabama wide receivers. It's usually a pretty good sign. But he would be maybe a guy that's in consideration here that they've had in for a visit if you're trying to address that wide receiver position. Isaiah Likely, I think it's too early for tight end considering where things are at this year. Although, OJ Howard is on a 1-year deal. Dawson Knox needs to get a deal done. Likely is a guy that they've had in. They definitely have met with him a number of times. So he's a guy they probably like and want to do more at the tight end position. So maybe you go early, but I'm cool with taking, this is going to sound so homerish and weird, but I'm cool with taking Cam Taylor-Britt and getting our cornerbacks solidified here with him being the best on the board.
Look, we took him in 4 mocks. Why do we not?
I'm going to take personal responsibility for willing Cam Taylor-Britt up in value throughout these mock drafts, and now that we can't even get him in the 3rd round, I'm going to take personal credit for bumping Cam Taylor-Britt in the mock world.
If we drafted any later in the 2nd round, we might not have gotten him at all.
Right. We'll see.
Even in round 2. All right, so we're pulling that trigger. I'm going to tell you this right now. I have a feeling if there's one player in this draft you're going to be following, because the odds already won't go to the Bills. There's 31 other teams.
Yeah, no.
Cam Taylor-Britt's going to be a guy from this class. I got a feeling that Aaron Quinn's going to be following pretty closely for
I'll keep
a number of years just to see if you were right on him. All right, so we're rolling here. We're going into round 3. So far, I like what we've done so far. We've addressed offensive guard and we've addressed corner. I think you got a guy capable of starting as a rookie. I'm talking about the guard Green, but I think he's a more long-term guy. With Cam Taylor-Britt, I think you got a guy who's capable of coming in and competing for a starting job as a rookie right away. All right, so the Bills are on the clock, round 3. Let's go
see
look at some picks before here.
Who gone? So,
all right, some of the guys we already talked about: Walker, Parham, they're gone. Calvin Austin Jr.
Likely.
Calvin Austin the 3rd. I'm sorry, he went to Indy, the 73rd pick. By the way, your boy Stephon Gilmore going to Indy. What did you think about that?
Indy is a weird team that I can't get a vibe on. I always think they're supposed to be really good, and then the quarterback stuff hasn't been solidified. But I think it's a good move for their defense. I like Gilmore a lot more than most of the Mafia does.
Yeah, me too. All right, so not a lot of guys spend a lot of time.
Nothing crazy. Yeah, so I think we're still stuck on corners here.
Oh yeah, we are.
So let's move. There you go. So Spiller's still out there on the board, which was Joe Marino's number 1 back. I think is also Bruce Nolan's number 1 rated running back. James Cook, your boy's still on the board here. Khalil Shakir is a guy that is getting a lot of love. If we didn't already go interior offensive line, Cole Strange, super athletic guy Joe Marino brought up on our show the other day, and I went looking in to him a little bit. Definitely has got athleticism you look for at the guard position. Let's see, Jurgens is out there. That's a guy that we've taken a few times.
I've liked him. We were getting him in the 5th round, and then we noticed later on, like last week, he was gone by the early 4th round.
Yeah, but we went interior offensive line so early already.
We eliminated that.
Hard to do that. Emerson still here. If you didn't do cornerback, you could have already, you could have gotten
Right.
that. JoJo Doman's a guy like the offensive tackle out of Central Michigan maybe could be in play. I think that's too early to go offensive line twice, maybe a little bit. Let's see. I think we're going into read. Wan'Dale Robinson would love to walk out of a draft with a wide receiver like that. If you miss out on a Calvin Austin, that's the type you're kind of looking for. So, I think start scrolling up because we're going to be able to get into these guys.
Yeah, a little
bit later here.
So I think this comes down for me. I think
it's a good spot for a back.
I was going to say that for me, I think this is either a great spot for either a running back or if there's a receiver that you really like that's out there.
I think it's good. So let's go to running backs and see what is it? Spiller
and Cook, Brian Robinson from Alabama.
I like Robinson quite a bit. Scroll down. Who else is available? Like if we missed out on this round, what are we looking at? Dameon Pierce, I like. Dameon Pierce. Rashad White, I like a lot. Yeah. So maybe we could wait a little bit. I don't know. We could walk away with Cook, and that's a guy that you think fits this passing game real nice.
Do you think he fits his passing game real nice? You probably would know better than me. I've read that he feels like the kind of guy who would fit this passing game well.
He's got the genetics at a proven NFL level. It's hard for me to tell with the Georgia running backs exactly how well-rounded of players they are. And I think he adds something in the receiving game. And I do want that out of the running back position. But if I'm drafting here in these first 3 rounds, I also want a guy that's pretty much a full back that can take over for Devin Singletary next year. So the Bills don't have to pay Devin Singletary a second contract. Like that's really what I'm looking for is a guy that, I'm pretty sure it's not Zach Moss. And so if we're drafting a guy here in these first 3 picks, I want it to be a guy that I feel like can hold 20 carries 8-9 weeks out of a season and be that bell cow back for you every once in a while. And I don't know that that's it. So I think Spiller could be more in line with that type of running back. I don't know that he falls this far. That's a pretty steep fall from being the 54th ranked player to falling to 89. Something went wrong in this draft. But so I would be fine with Cook though here. I think that he could contribute right away. I just don't know that he could be the guy that allows you to walk away from Devin Singletary. You might have to address the position again.
Sure, you don't want to take the punter? Although jokes aside, if you really wanted the punter, you might have to go get him now because he might not be there.
What was our bet? Didn't we have a bet when he goes?
I said by the 4th round. If he was available, we bet $1. I bet you that he would not be available when the Bills are on the clock in the 4th round.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't do it. I can't
do it. Well, take who you want. You're the GM here, man. So what do you want?
Let's take all right. So let's go back. We're at the main board. We're taking who I want. Man, I have a hard time if Spiller's staying here. I think the value. He's not my favorite back in this draft, but it's hard to not take it with the value. And we can't do that every time where you got 2 or 3 players sitting there that maybe don't belong in that value. Like the board fell the way it fell, and I'm having a hard time turning Spiller down.
Yeah, let's take him. We can always in our minds to make it feel a little more realistic. Let's say maybe they gave up a small pick next year to move up a little bit, 10, 12 spots and get them because there will be a couple guys who go through. All right, so we're rolling here. All right, so now we have went guard, we have went corner, we have went running back. By the way, we haven't really talked about much of this during this process, this exercise. Zach Moss might be in trouble.
Sure.
Come camp, especially if the Bills do address running back anywhere rounds 1 through 4. I think that might mean as much trouble for Zach Moss as it does for Duke Johnson, especially if they get a guy like say Spiller who will carry the ball more. I think that can spell trouble for Zach Moss. I really do. He's
peace.
I don't know, man. I like him in a way. I love him as a rookie.
He's fine. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm not sold on Zach Moss being on this team next year. Anyway, all right. So
JoJo Doman's off the board. Zion McCollum, cornerback, went to the Ravens. Let's see here. Wan'Dale Robinson went to the Broncos at 116. Brian Robinson Jr., running back, we were looking at 120 to New Orleans. Let's see. That's
about it. So in this world,
Punt God's still there. You owe me $1. Yeah.
Maybe we could take punt God. Me, I
No.
mean, it wouldn't be a fall from grace for a punter to get drafted in the 4th round, making it sound like the biggest travesty ever. But
Yeah,
anyway,
right.
so Rashard White, I'm just looking at the running backs who didn't get drafted, and according to this, he would have been there. Your boy Kobe Bryant's still on the board too. That's
Yeah.
interesting. He's there.
Velus Jones Jr. is there.
We took him last week. We
Alec
haven't
Pierce.
addressed receiver yet either.
Alec Pierce is another guy, dude. Like, I think he's so freaky athletically. This could be Bean has taken some athletic freaks. That's something that we definitely know. This could be, if you go look at his RAS score, it's like a 9.6 or something. Like, it's pretty freaky. I think he could be a type of wide receiver where people don't see him as necessarily a guy for Buffalo, but that the Bills just can't turn away from that type of athleticism and adding it to Josh Allen and addressing that in the 4th round and getting that kind of athleticism's pretty good. Pierce Strong, running back from South Dakota State. That's a guy a lot of people are high on as well. If you didn't take a running back to this point, I think, looking at the guys that are still available. Lacita Smith, guy we like. Already went interior offensive line, but that'd be a guy I'd be happy leaving this draft with. I think that's sort of the frustrating thing about exercises like this, right? Is I like Kenyon Green. I think he could be a long-term starter. I also like a lot of these 4th, 5th round interior offensive linemen that I think there's definitely a difference in the caliber of player, but that you could get a long-term journeyman type starter here as well. So, all right, let's go though. Scroll up. Let's see. What are we going to take here? I'd like to maybe address wide receiver. If I can't, I won't. Man, dude, I kind of still love the idea, and I love it even more that I got Cam Taylor-Britt in the 2nd, and that maybe getting Kobe Bryant and double dipping in the 4th. I love the play of doing the double dip for corner. To me, it's either Alec Pierce, Velus Jones Jr., or Kobe Bryant for me.
I agree 100%.
At the spot.
Well, you're pulling the trigger, though.
All right, so I'm debating these 3. Can you go to wide receivers real quick? What do I have left in the? Don't love. All right, scroll down. So I don't love what's left, and then go back to corner. There's some guys I can live with. I don't get. Yeah, I can live with Isaac Taylor Stewart again.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, worst case, we don't end up double dipping in corner, but
no, I'm saying if there was positions to double dip in.
Sure. Yeah. There are definitely some guys. There's some guys that you've discussed previously that'll be available potentially beyond this pick too.
Right. All right. I am going to go, for the sake of this, let's go with
tough decisions on the
It is a tough decision. Sorry, man. We'll go with Pierce. We'll switch it up. I haven't taken him yet in one of these drafts.
Okay.
Go with a freaky athlete.
Alec Pierce, a wide receiver from Cincinnati, is the 4th rounder.
That's the toughest pick I think we've come to in these mocks, man. That one.
Yeah, that was tough, man. Now
I love Kobe Bryant.
I was going to see.
Gone.
Is he gone? Yep, he's gone 138. Yeah, we can follow along now as these are going for any of the guys that you had talked about.
That's tough. It's tough for me to pass up on him. You know what? Kendall Mursky is on our network. If you haven't heard of him or aren't following him,
he's good.
He's young and he's brilliant. He's a smart kid.
I like him.
He was on our show a couple weeks back, and we were talking about some guys. And so he worked for Sports Information Solutions, SIS. It's a data website. If you don't use it, it's fantastic, super powerful data site. And he tracked Cincinnati. And so I asked him about a couple players like Pierce, Kobe Bryant, Sauce Gardner, some of these guys. And the way he talked about Bryant, like people really slept on him because Sauce is so good. Didn't give up any touchdowns, best cornerback prospect in the NFL. Kobe Bryant got picked on in the same way a Levi Wallace type cornerback got picked on. And he was saying, like, you watch him, he's a sticky cornerback. Like, he's much more athletic than he tests, like the way he plays on the field. And it's similar to sort of a Levi in a sense, not in the comp and how they play or the type of players they are, but in that, he just got underrated because he played next to such a superstar and he got picked on at times and guys took advantage of him at times, but he's such a good player. But anyway, so that was my rant. If you're not following Kendall, you get good takes that. And when you are, yeah.
Let me point something out too for everyone listening or watching. Aaron and I are trying to do this semi-realistic as well. That's why we call it an exercise as opposed to a series of mock drafts, just necessarily because looking back at this, we could have taken Devin Lloyd in the first, we could have taken Brees Hall in the second,
right?
Which would have allowed us to take someone else in the third. We're taking guys at least semi-realistic where we think they could
Trying
potentially
to be
fall. Because
right.
if we were just doing it to try to impress all the fans with all the biggest names, like I said, we could just go strictly by
Totally.
the board and
Yeah.
not go like, well, that's not realistic. Like we could go take this punter right now in the fifth round and people would be like, oh my God, this is awesome.
What a deal. Yeah.
But we're not going to do that because he's not going to be there. So anyway.
No, but you know what we did do? If you didn't listen to Joe's show with us, we did a mock draft with Joe and we took a punter, I think in 6th round, maybe, or 7th round. And we said it was because they only have one punter. So we took punt god and then just said punter to be named later, like that the Bills could still draft a punter in the 6th or 7th round, and it's some guy that we just don't.
That actually makes really good sense. I never thought of that till you said that. Anyway,
so we can use that as a
that's on the table.
It's a wild card.
Sure, on the table. We'll just say punt god.
Yeah,
future punter. My bad.
Yeah.
All right, so
so what do we got here?
We've already went running back. We've already went interior offensive line. When you get to the 5th round, I think you're just trying to get.
I could double dip there.
Like. You're trying to get players you like here. So
yeah, I'm not opposed to a double dip there. Cornerback.
We haven't touched linebacker. I don't know if you like any of these guys.
DeMarco Jackson, maybe. I know he's been in on a visit with the Bills. Scroll down here. I kind of like Blankenship. That's tough.
Sometimes visits with the Bills or visits with teams might not seem like a big deal, but if nothing else to me, it lets you know that a team has interest in that player as a fit. Like if he didn't have any fit with the Bills, he wouldn't be in for a visit. I don't care if he's a 1st, 2nd, 5th rounder. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I do put some stock into any visit.
Chris Paul, like him.
We've taken him before.
Available. Ty Chandler's a running back. I like Thomas Booker's an interior defensive lineman. I like them. It's the way they stacked up at that position in the offseason makes it tough for me to add a guy. I don't know that he can make the team.
It'd be a tough make. Yeah.
It's a tough make, dude. This guy tested real well physically, too. If you go look at his RAS score, pretty impressive in that interior off defensive line. Isaac Taylor Stewart, a guy that we took last week, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I think, again, similar, like, you're in the 5th round. This guy could be a decent depth piece at least, which I think you need to go into the season if they're not going to address it with a vet. I think you need 2 to 3 guys. One, real quick about corner. I think the Buffalo Bills are much higher on Dane Jackson than Bills Mafia is because they've been in on all these corners, but they haven't gone over aggressive to close the deal on any of these corners. And we've seen Bean when he wants something bad, he goes over aggressive and gets it and makes it happen. We saw it with Von Miller. Like he got super aggressive. We've seen the Von Miller YouTube where it talks about the deal going on behind the scenes. Bean's not scared to get aggressive. He didn't go overly aggressive. He's been in on all the corners. To me, it's similar to, I think they viewed Dane as they viewed Levi, where, hey, our floor's all right. Like our floor is pretty good. We got a guy we can trust. We're not going to overpay for anything. We want to bring in competition. We'd like to be better than Levi. We'd like to be better than Dane, but we're not going to get insane crazy about it. So we haven't seen him address it yet. But guys like this could just be that further depth, probably more in the Cam Lewis role of like, hey, this is a guy that in a bind might be able to come up and play a game, but otherwise is going to be floating around between our practice 100%. Squad and inactive. So I'm cool with double dipping at corner here if we want to. So if you want to go look at all the corners available, I think I want to go with we're way down. Where's the top? Is that the top?
Yep.
Dang. Okay. So wow, man, he's rated 193. It seems like a reach. All right, go back to the main board. Sorry. Close corner.
Stupid thing.
I know. Sometimes it's tough. There we go. Scroll down a little bit. Let's make sure we're not missing out on anything crazy.
It's getting tough. It's getting tough.
We're not missing out on anybody that I like. Oh, I'd be kicking myself for. So let's keep going. Scroll a little bit more as we get towards that. Yeah, none of these. No. Let's go with Chris Paul. He's higher ranked. I'm cool with double dipping at interior offensive line.
Yeah, we've taken him before.
Yeah, he's a guy that I like. I think
Eibachter's no
worst
lock.
case scenario of a swing guard in the future. They're really this is a position they're going to have to address. I really don't think Saffold's playing more than a year. He struggled to get through games last year with that shoulder injury. Like he's didn't miss any games, but he struggled with that shoulder injury. Bills started Air Raid, Steve Mathis from Air Raid Hour talked about this quite a bit. And the Bill started 10 offensive linemen a year ago. So you don't think you need to stock up on that room? You're crazy.
I agree 100%. And again, let's say Saffold is one and done, and Green, if he's not the starter right away, he becomes a starter next year. You want to hopefully find a good third guard. Yeah. Eibacher being here even this year is not a lock, and beyond next year is certainly no lock. So it's a good pick.
You would like to improve it. Like Eibacher's fine, but if you can improve, great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're in a 6th round here. Last couple picks.
Yeah, this one's easy for me.
This is going to be Isaac Taylor Stewart, right?
Yeah,
this is a good spot for him.
Yeah,
so we're going to take.
Wasted too much other time with other picks.
So. no, it's a good pick. So I liked what you said. Your theory about corner. So there you go with him in the 6th round. Now we're going to have 2 more picks here in the 7th to wrap this up. This is just going to be sexy name time, I think.
Yeah.
See that punter? I did. By the way, I did talk to Joe, and there again, he understands. Did the punter get drafted? I was wrong. The punter did get drafted.
It was close, though. I don't think it was too far behind.
Huh. All right. Well, he's getting drafted before that. Yeah. I was just because I was considering. Now we could also say we could literally draft anybody and just say future punter and call it. Future punter.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
So we could do that as well. But
I'm gonna take this one's gonna be easy for me. I'm gonna take Thomas Booker. He's a guy I've liked this whole process. He's a guy Eric Turner likes. Once the Bills really addressed that position, it was hard for me to continue to take him in drafts. But you know what? I'm this far back. Not all these guys are making my team. If I have a guy that I think's like pretty freaky athletically and fits my team, I'll bring him in and hey, man, see if you can out position one of the guys that we brought in, or if not, maybe we can sneak you on the practice squad. You're falling to the 7th round or 6th round for a reason. Maybe we can hold on to you, and if not,
I agree 100%.
Bill's got to get used to losing some picks every once in a while. It's going to happen when you're this good.
Yeah, he's very talented. He's a talented guy. Plus, who knows what's going to happen in camp? Maybe a defensive tackle goes down. So, I mean, you never know. All right, so the Bills are on the clock with the final one. To my point, though, with Joe Marino, I was talking about the draft network because, again, I want to keep plugging them. He understands that there's some glitches. Like, for an example, with premiums, the reason why we haven't been doing trades is because I can't stand the way the phone constantly rings. They're going to figure out ways to kind of get around some of that stuff for next year. But all in all, this is a freaking awesome tool. All right, so the Bills are on the clock. They got their last pick. So I'll tell you, here's what we'll do. We'll take a glance through. If you like one of these guys, we'll pull the trigger. If not, we'll just take whoever and we'll call him future punter.
Cool.
You might be future punter before Hack ends up making the team, by the way.
Poor Hack, yeah. Smoke Monday. Elite name.
Yeah.
Safety help.
We haven't touched. We haven't touched that position.
Possible safety help. Special teamers. I actually think, I've been taking him in a lot of. I think he could be a good special teams dude, and potentially maybe long term, if you develop a guy, could be a safety. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be a great NFL safety, but the worst case scenario, I think you get a special teams guy, and they need some more depth at that position to pan out at some point.
All right. So we took a safety Smoke Monday with our
last every day.
All right. Now this is going to wind up here and we'll go through these final picks. I just want to make sure, again, I'm still paranoid because of what happened the first time we did this. If you remember, the board went haywire. So let's remember some of these guys. All right. So to recap here, the Bills in the 1st round took Kenyon Green, offensive guard from Texas A&M. He's a guy who I think is a sleeper pick. So I think this is very realistic. 2nd round, we went Cam Taylor-Britt, a guy that you've sold me on through the weeks, and a guy who I think in the 2nd round is maybe a little bit more realistic than getting him in the late 3rd. So I'm happy with that. Where'd we go? 3rd round. Isaiah Spiller, running back from Texas A&M. There's a good chance he's gone, but listen, some guys are going to fall some. And maybe, you know what? Maybe teams are thinking that Cook and White might be better out of the backfield catching the ball, and they might want that type of running back. So it's not like crazy from the fall there. Round 4, Alex Pierce, or Alec Pierce, I'm sorry, a wide receiver from Cincinnati. 5th round, Chris Paul, a guy we've taken a couple times, an interior offensive lineman from Tulsa. Hopefully he'll provide the Bills with some good depth. 6th round, Isaac Taylor Stewart, a corner from USC. And then with the 2 7th round picks, we went Thomas Booker, a defensive tackle from Stanford. And
Yep.
then with our last pick, I think it's the second time we've taken him, Smoke Monday,
My
a
man.
safety from Auburn. All right, so we're done with this draft.
That's it. I'm
And
done with you for the year.
I ask you every time, but now that we're done with this draft,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts? Mine are, it's not as sexy as the ones where we got Chris Olave and Lloyd and Hall in the second round, like we've done with some. But to me, I like this one because it just feels realistic and it also feels practical. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think you get a possible immediate contributor in Kenyon Green. I think he can push Bates for a starting job. And then I think you get Cam Taylor-Britt, I think, can start right away with Trey being out. And then when Trey comes back, I think he can provide you a pretty decent starting cornerback too, and maybe a really good one long term. So I think you get that out of it. And then what else we get? Where we get Pierce in the third
Yeah,
here.
we took
Pierce
Isaiah Spiller in the third, the
or
running
Spiller
back.
in the third. Yeah. So you get which I do think is a guy that's going to allow you to replace Devin Singletary next year and give you production this year. Fantastic. I think third round's a great value. I know I give people a lot of hard time about I'm okay with a first round running back personally, and I know a lot of people aren't, but you can't tell me that third round's not a great spot to take a running back. Second, third round's probably the best spots to take running back. So
Bills have done
happy
it
to walk,
twice in the third round recent years. Yeah.
happy to do it. Yeah. And then Alec Pierce here, wide receiver, I think probably wouldn't make a lot of hay this year. I don't think it'd be that's a tough wide receiver room to crack for production. I think probably maybe takes more of a Gabriel Davis approach to getting on the field where if somebody goes down in injury, he can take some advantage of some snaps. But definitely I think long term, Jameson Crowder's not going to be here long term. You might have trouble paying Gabe Davis along with everybody else that needs to get paid over the next few years. You got to think of continuing to fill this bucket with young talent. I think Pierce could be a guy that can be a good wide receiver too at some point in the NFL. Chris Paul, maybe rotational interior offensive lineman. I think that's cool with that pick. Taylor Stewart and double dipping at cornerback's not bad. Like we said, you just need bodies at that position. And then Booker and Monday, these guys probably tough task to make this Bills team. In my ideal scenario, Pat, is I know I don't like to mock trades and do all this stuff, but my ideal scenario if I'm Brandon Bean is eliminating maybe 2 to 3 of these picks and working back into the top 100, walking away with 4 top 100 picks or something in this draft where I know I got maybe 4 chances at guys that are going to produce on this Super Bowl run team that I've got. And then keeping a few picks for developmental back of the roster thing. I think you'd be happy to walk away here with 6 guys instead, 5 guys instead of all these guys where probably in this scenario, you probably got 3 that aren't making this team.
I'll tell you one final point, then I'll let you go, Aaron. It's I'm saying it to be funny, and I'm kind of laughing when I'm saying it, but I'm actually being truthful. So I've learned a lot over the last 5 weeks of doing this with you. I've learned about a lot of potential scenarios. I've learned about 20 or 30 players that I probably would have not known much or anything about were we not doing this. But the one thing I can tell you is that, and I'm being honest here, I'm not any closer right now to knowing what the hell the Bills are going to do next
It's hard.
Thursday
Yeah.
than I was 5 weeks ago, just because the possibilities, where they draft, what their needs are, what we expect to go ahead of them is just, I don't know, man. I'm completely clueless.
The biggest
They could do anything right now.
they could.
Nothing, almost nothing would surprise me.
It's so this is a weird thing because the last few years, right, we've been at this back half of the draft, new to us still, drafting in the back half of the draft for 20 years, dude, and in the many years that we covered the Bills, you've always been in that top 15 where it's easier to pinpoint, all right, who's going to be that top 10. And then if,
Yeah.
there may be a handful of guys. So it was easier to really pinpoint what the Bills were looking for earlier on. Now that you're at the back half of this first round, it's a totally different area of value. Like we talked about a bunch of times on this. Most people I talk to don't have 32 first round grades in any draft. So you're dealing with an area that you're talking about second round talent in the first round, that you get that fifth year option. Like there's so many variables that play in to that. And then you go into that with Brandon Beane has done a really good job addressing this roster and a number of their needs. The most glaring one is cornerback, right? But I think a lot of us think there's a possibility that internally they could be higher on Dane Jackson, and maybe they're higher on Trey returning sooner, and that they can roll something out with a Cam Taylor-Britt type guy and Dane Jackson, and that would be good enough to get them where they want to go. So it gives them so many opportunities where we see this as fans, we see that there's a giant need at cornerback, right? But that doesn't mean for the Bills that's the same way they see it, where that they have to walk out with that first round. So if that's not the case and everything's on the table, the Bills really have an opportunity. Like we keep saying, this guy's not going to fall, that guy's not going to fall, somebody's going to fall. And if they're really sticking to a best player available, they're going to get a really good player at 25.
One final question, and this is purely for fun, literally just for fun.
Sure. Yeah.
In a billion trillion years, it'll never happen. It's more unrealistic than the MCU movies that I've been watching over the last week or so. Just for fun, let's just say the Bills had the first pick of the draft right now. For whatever reason, they had the first pick of the draft, and you could pick anybody in this draft.
I haven't even thought of the top 10.
I was just thinking you probably haven't spent a second thinking about this because you know this team's good and you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
But I have, and I'm like, if you had the first pick of the draft, who would you take? Now, defensive ends are going off the board in every mock draft right away, but you got Von Miller, you got Rizzo, you got Boogie, and then offensive tackles. But
I'm taking Hutchinson.
You got Doggins, you got Spencer Brown. Who would you take if you had the very first pick of this draft?
Yeah.
Right now, and you could have anybody you wanted.
Hutchinson, yeah.
Hutchinson, you take?
Yeah, I'm a Michigan fan. The things I saw him do to other human beings, like I would get rid of some of the young guys that the Bills have now and be totally happy to let him play alongside Von Miller for a year or two and learn from one of the best, and then just take over as, I mean, he's got the potential, in my opinion, to be like that Myles Garrett, Bosa, game wrecking, destroying, you have to watch out for every time he's on the field type of dude. Like he's a strong, crazy human being.
I don't think he's the best player in the draft, but I think
it's just positional value. Like
Sauce Gardner would be somebody I would actually have to consider if I had the very first pick of the draft, just because I mean you're getting a potential Pro Bowl corner with that first. Again, that's kind of ridiculous shit. That's never going to happen. But you know, it's always fun to think about anyway. All right. Thank you everyone for listening, for everyone for watching. Make sure you give Aaron a follow on Twitter at Aaron.
It's been a fun month.
716. It's been a fun 5 weeks, man. And it's going to be a fun couple days for all football fans with the draft next week. And it's going to be good fun for you and for Eric and for Greg getting to go to Vegas to work or not, bro. You're going to Vegas.
Man. Yeah, we're excited.
So that's going to be a fun time. Thank you, man. Appreciate you as always.
I appreciate you. Yeah. And thanks for always supporting us and everyone on the network, man. We really appreciate it.
All right, guys, and I will be back with Casual Friday, Joe Yurden, so make sure you check that out on Friday. Talk to you guys soon.